on West Bremer Radio. The time now is 8:12. Let's cross down live to Harold the H. Ark, peacock-a-doodle-doo. He's got a Sydney fortune teller was charged over an alleged $70 million fraud this week, but Ipswich had their own fortune teller, Madame, 100 years ago. G'day, Harold. Can you tell me the story, please?
Yeah, that's right. Look, Sydney think they're pretty good with $70 million fraud. We've been doing it for 100 years in Ipswich. And in fact, go back 100 years.
We're still doing it.
Well, yeah, I can't tell you. I can only tell you the past. You're looking to the future, Danny.
Mm-hmm.
But the decade after the First World War, they were golden years for fortune tellers.
Right.
Because I think Australia was exhausted from the war, and so everyone from all walks of life just wanted to know there were better days ahead.
Oh.
And so there were fortune tellers springing up everywhere. They were really popular. And operating in Brisbane at the time were fortune tellers like Madame McKenzie, who operated out of the Lyceum chambers by the Halls of Power on George Street. And Madame Loft, she was a clairvoyant for the working class on Wickham Street. So everyone was looking for it. There were travelling fortune tellers, of course, and the early ones for us here in Ipswich were, Mr. Joseph Bostock and Madame Langdon.
Oh.
And they visited Ipswich holding sittings in the old Mrs. Walters boarding house on Brisbane Street. But that was back where your old studios used to be.
Yeah.
That's where the fortune tellers went.
That's right.
Fortune tellers had to be really careful how they advertised their services. You see, while fortune telling in itself wasn't a crime, taking money for something you couldn't deliver was. It's called fraud.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Bostock was convicted of fraud in 1909 for claiming he had the ability to predict future events, which evidently he could not.
No.
So you can see, after the First World War, Brisbane had their fortune tellers and Ipswich was part of a travelling circuit for the industry. That was until 1920, when Ipswich, we got our very own resident fortune teller, Madame McKenzie, otherwise known as Mrs. Alice Maud Roberts. So in February of 1920, Alice, she married Ipswich man Mr. Stephen Roberts. Now, he was a coppersmith at the Ipswich Railway Workshops.
Right.
In August of that year, she relocated here to Ipswich and immediately made a first visit to the Ipswich Courthouse when she made a fraudulent statement to the Electoral Office and was, she was fined £1 with costs.
Wow.
Now, she really should have seen that coming because Alice then set herself up in the fortune-telling business as Madame McKenzie. Now, the quality of her work was somewhat questionable. However, she did, because of that, look, she attracted the attention of the authorities. And in fact, the culmination of that was an undercover sting in 1926. The police, the government really getting on top of this. That's when a team of undercover police agents, formed by Mrs. Ada Patterson and Mrs. Mary McEwen, led an operation to blow the lid off the fraudulent fortune-telling industry. And they targeted our Madame McKenzie here in Ipswich. Now, Madame McKenzie didn't just foretell the future. She actually went for the jugular and for the really dramatic. She told Mrs. Patterson, the undercover policeman, that she would be badly hurt in an accident, that one of her sons was going to be killed in an explosion. Now, I've done the research, so I can tell you from historical research that didn't happen.
No.
Right, so Mrs. Patterson's son wasn't killed in an explosion. But what's more, Madame McKenzie told Mrs. Patterson that she had 4 children, including 3 boys and a girl, and that she had been married twice because neither husband had been faithful to her.
Naughty boys.
Now, that was also not true. In fact, I think Madame McKenzie was more than likely talking about her own marital experience.
Disgrace.
So, insofar as being a fortune teller, she struggled. Now, Madame McKenzie was charged and convicted in the Ipswich courthouse for falsely pretending she could foretell the future, of course. Now, her lawyer asked for leniency because for a long time she'd been fortune-telling with the full knowledge of the Ipswich police. They didn't seem to care.
No.
And they might have been customers. And her prosecution was the first of its kind in Ipswich for a very long time, I think since Mr. Bostock 17 years earlier. But that didn't make a difference, and she was fined £2 with costs. And that didn't stop Madame McKenzie continuing to charge the 3 shillings a visit that she was charging. And come 1929, she'd actually gone back to Brisbane, where she operated right by police headquarters from her home on Roma Street.
Oh.
So she was actually charged again, and this time fined £3 with costs. The fines were going up. Now, by this time, the trouble was following Madame McKenzie and her family wherever they went. Her stepson, who was a dairy farmer in the North Burnett, he was fined for tax evasion twice.
Ah.
Her house was set on fire, and her husband died. So Madame McKenzie, she lived to the ripe old age of 90, having claimed the honour of being Ipswich's first publicised resident fortune teller. But Danny, I'm just surprised she never saw any of this trouble coming.
Mate, you build up this story again. You are a builder. You're a DNA building block. Unbelievable. Now, how do we get that story and other stories?
Well, I will build it onto my website. Go online to historyouthere.com. I'll be posting this story first thing tomorrow morning, on Sunday morning. But as you know, I think there's 270 Ipswich short stories there now, but 500-600 short stories overall on historyouthere.com.
Now, that was a great story. And coming up now, we've got Jane Keogh talking about the Romanian immigrants who have been coming here since the turn of the century. And you are now a grand uncle. I noticed on your sister Sophie's...
Well, I like to think that I'm a really, really good uncle, but grand will do. Yeah.
You're a funny man, but isn't that wonderful, eh? So I know your sister...
A lot of love to all the women out there. There's my sister, her daughter, and her new daughter, Bonnie.
How good's it? Bonnie. I love it. All right, mate. We'll talk to you next week, eh? Here with Harold the H. Peacock on Ipswich History on West Bremer Radio. It's now 8:19.